Hi Emma, such a pleasure to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
I feel like this is one of these films that's sort of quietly groundbreaking, in its representation of female sexuality. And I also believe that Katie actually had you in mind when she'd written it. She'd written it, with your comedic abilities and so on and so forth. So what did it mean to you to be involved with the project?
Well, I think it's one of my most favourite things I've ever done. I just, first of all, read this script and it was utterly unique. I'd never seen those people, I'd never seen that situation or even thought about it. And it was so funny how frightened she was. I thought this could be hilarious but also very moving. And it wasn't until we started to act it and rehearse it that I realised how very emotional it was, and that the sort of cauterisation of her sexual life when she was very young was a source of terrible, such pain that she had to do something about it. It's one of those things when you suddenly realise that you can't not do it. You might fail, but you have to try. And that Leo is so kind and leads her through the process is, I don't know, it's just something really beautiful.
And Daryl, of course, more at the beginning of his career, you're more of a screen veteran, but he just embodies his character so well in terms of not just physicality, but the sensitivity. How was it working with him, and what were some of the highlights and challenges of the shoot?
I think that, yeah, it's true, that there's that disparity in ages and experience. It's there at the beginning, but actually one thing to remember is that stories and parts reach you at the moment in your career when you're ready for them. Now, I couldn't have played this maybe even 5 years ago. It hit me just at the moment when I was ready. And Daryl couldn't have played it. Maybe in 10 years' time he couldn't play it. It's like timing is everything with stuff like this, and it was just the right time. I also think this story would have landed very differently before the Me Too movement and before the conversation about consent, abuse and all of that had really come into the mainstream. So I think everything about this film is affected by its timing. Because what women want is at the top of anyone's list. It's not part of the mainstream, it's not in any part of our culture. So that's that we simply don't know. And a lot of women actually don't know what they want. It's a very complex question. I mean, you ask women what they want, they go, well, I don't know, am I allowed to want? Is wanting okay? It's not really okay, is it? I'm supposed to give, aren't I? I'm supposed to be giving and sorting out everybody. Okay, I tell you what, I'll sort everyone out and then I'll think about what I want. But I still don't know what I want because I'm still thinking about what everyone else might need. So we're not trained to think about what we want. And whilst I think it's very good that we consider other people as a matter of course, and I think that would be very, very good if it was shared by men. That's, for me, feminism is not about becoming more like men, but men becoming more like women. I think that this question of female sexual pleasure is a very hidden one and not discussed. And I think the fact of its hiddenness is a huge problem for all of us. It's connected to our self-hatred, it's connected to internalised misogyny and looking at our bodies and not feeling comfortable with our bodies. And if you don't feel comfortable with your body for a start, how can you experience pleasure in it? Because you're constantly thinking there's something wrong with my body. I think that us not discussing it is one of the causes of the huge levels of sexual violence, because there's nowhere in which we can be honest with ourselves. And so I think that's why the film is a zeitgeist movie, because I think this is the time, and this is the place, and this is the moment. I think that writing new stories is essential, and I think that if you're young, I mean, if I were a young actor, what I'd be doing is I'd be writing stories. I would be writing. I wouldn't hang about, because you can make films now very, very easily and with quite small budgets. I'd be writing my first short film and thinking, how can I make this? I can make it on a shoestring. I'll make it on my phones. There's all kinds of ways in which we can create art now, this kind of storytelling art. I think it's a very good time, actually, for new stories to find their way. I also think that the sort of stranglehold of just the white man's story is dying, really dying. And whilst I grew up, that's all I had to look at, and I really enjoyed a lot of it. I mean, I enjoyed watching Marlon Brando and all of those guys. But, enough already. So I think that as well, the audience is so ready for new stories, so hungry for new stories, thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. So I feel like even though this is a small film, it has got a very, very wide reach. And already it's kind of doing that thing that sometimes happens, but just going, it's really nice film. It was an easy decision, yeah. I mean, I know I've played women a bit like Nancy before, I think. I mean, I've played women who live sort of normal, decent lives, and I think actually, Karen in Love Actually is just one such woman. Sort of done with Leo services probably, but I'd never seen this story, never seen this situation. Whilst I recognised her, I hadn't been introduced yet to Leo as a character. I've never seen him before, and that's so unusual in any film. Especially as you get older, you think, oh yeah, that's that person like that person in that film. That's like that person in that film. But this is utterly original. And how often does that happen? Yeah, that's right. I mean, for Sophie and Brian, filmmakers, it's a real challenge. Because when we're making films, we're always saying, well, we need to open it out. And of course, we had no opportunity to open it out. That's not what it was about. We talked about it, the possibility of doing things outside the room. But in the end, we understood that the landscape wasn't New Zealand, it was faces, what was happening on people's faces, everything that was happening dramatically was happening inside the body and on the face. And Sophie just made use of that so beautifully with the light, with all the decisions to make them have these meetings during the day. It was fascinating. It wasn't all at night, but very little of it takes place at night. Everything about that was so finely calibrated and thought through, and you don't notice that you're in a room all the way through with two people. You just don't feel it. It just is so dramatic.